give an akdama to the akdama. I have to give an introduction. 48, 50 mashpiyim talking over here. The Rebbe spoke on Chof Ches Nissan that we need 1, 2, 3, maybe 10. And I can't talk for other people. When I was asked to talk, my first gut was like, are you kidding me? I mean, if I figured out the great genius idea to bring Moshiach, I would have implemented it long ago. And me coming and saying, okay, this is the idea. So I remember when I was a bacher, I was 20 years old, and I was going on shlichus. We ended up going to shlichus to Teres Emes. And it was Yeshiva G'dayla. And the guys over there were literally my age. I was going to go be a shliach for guys that were a year younger than me, max. And I remember I sat down with a mashpia I knew. I bumped into him in Tishrei in 770, and I sat across him and I said, I'll be honest, you're there tzaddik nevesh behemtai, I know where I'm at, and I'm not shaykh exactly to favreng with these guys. Especially that some of the chavren yeshiva, I'm pretty much guaranteed are more chassidish than I am at that stage. And instead of giving me the whole thing, yeah, you're not as bad as you think you are, he wasn't telling me, he obviously knew where I really was. You are as bad as you think you are. But what he did tell me is, Levi, talk to yourself out loud. That when you favreng, talk to yourself out loud. And ever since then, I've always used that not as an excuse, like, oh, that's a cheap shot. Okay, talk to yourself out loud and now say what you want. You could give it to the other person in the head, clap them on the head, but I'm talking to myself out loud. No, for me, it was a message that says, ask yourself a simple question. What do you need to hear? So, there've been lots of different messages that have been shared throughout the last, 10 hours. And some of the messages resonate with my Nefesh HaBahamis more than others, some less, etc. And I can only talk about my Nefesh HaBahamis, what my Nefesh HaBahamis needs to hear, and that's what I'm going to talk out loud. And apologies if I'm not going to quote 50 sichos in the next 20 minutes. So starting off with the history. I was 6.5 when Chof Ches Nissan happened, despite the look on my beard, and I don't recall much of the aftermath after. I do remember very clearly as a child, my father, Olav HaShalom, used to take me each time to the Fabrengen, and I remember the feeling in Nun Aleph, Nun Beis, that literally, this is in my kid mind, that the clouds are waiting outside for the Rebbe to finish the Fabrengen. They just don't want to interrupt. And the second we finish the Fabrengen, we're going to come out and the clouds are going to take us to Yerushalayim. That was in my Kinderische Cup, the reality that it was such a Moshiach hype. It was such a intensity. Now for the last 30 years, each year Chof Ches Nissan, we come and ask what's the message. And I want to start off by saying what Chof Ches Nissan is not. At least in my opinion. Chof Ches Nissan is not a depressing thought. Chof Ches Nissan is not about guilting us. Chof Ches Nissan is, again, the way I see it, wasn't a big Chiddush. Yes, the words the Rebbe used were a big Chiddush, and like my cousin Rabbi Greenberg expressed earlier, but ultimately, that was what the Rebbe said in Yud Shvat Tavshin Yud Aleph. That's what the Chassidus Chabad Tzadik Mamenaseh Yichya, as the speaker before me, Rabbi Shachat spoke. Ultimately, the Rebbe set up, if we're here to bring Mashiach, the Mashiach happens not only by the Nasi Hadar. The Nasi Hadar gives the Kayach for us to bring Mashiach. That's the very fabric of Yiddishkeit. So it's definitely not a depressing thought. So what is it? So I think it's important to remember what's at stake. We're sitting and talking over here, to bring Mashiach. As if in our minds we might sit there thinking it's just, it's a small goal, and we should feel really heavy about ourselves that 30 years later we didn't do it. Ultimately, bringing Mashiach is the single biggest task that was ever given to any human being in history. And from, as Basi Lagani, the Rebbe says, from Avram Avinu, and even from the beginning, from Mother Mauritian, we've been heading in one goal to bring Mashiach. So to be the final one, to be the Makkah Padish, to be the one that puts the final clap and brings Mashiach, let's be kind to ourselves. This is a big deal. It's a huge deal. And just sitting and clapping ourselves, on Malchus, what's with us 30 years later. It's a big deal. I mean, millions of Yidden gave their life from a serious nefesh to bring Moshiach. All the mitzvahs that all our ancestors did were to bring Moshiach. As the Alter Rebbe says, Kol Ma'aseinu V'Avodeseinu, Kol Zman Meshech HaGolus. Everything that was done throughout Golus is to bring Moshiach. So let's remember what's at stake and how big this calling is. It's a huge calling, which obviously means the Rebbe believes in us tremendously. But before we go there, let's remember this is huge. The Rebbe is coming to a bunch of, forgive the French, whippersnappers, and coming and telling us, you go bring Mashiach. Now let's be honest, the Yetzer Hara in the last few years hasn't made it easy. One of the Gemaras that always sticks out to me is the Gemara in Sanhedrin, on page and Daf Tzadik Ches, where the Gemara quotes a few of the Amoraim, Ula, Rabbi, etc. And Ula says the following, Yesei v'lo yachmine. I want Mashiach to come, but I don't want to be there. I obviously want to be there after Tchias HaMesim, but I don't want to be there. The Rabbi says the same thing. Yesei v'lo yachmine. Let him come, but I don't want to be there. Now, simple reading, you think, what did they see that they said they don't want to come? What did they see? World War I, World War II, communism. Chances are they saw that. And when Moshe Rabbeinu, it says Moshe fell on his face. Ra Moshe v'nafal upon him. When he saw the generation before Moshiach comes, he fell on his face. What did he see? Did he see the Holocaust? I'm sure he did. Communism, etc. But ultimately, we're the one given the task to bring Moshiach, the Rashbi. So obviously what they saw was us. So let's analyze. And maybe I'm assuming negative about any of the listeners. Again, I'm talking about myself. So what did Moshe Rabbeinu see? And what did the Rabbi see? And what did Ula see? They saw the internet. They saw smartphones. They saw addiction. They saw abundance. Whether some of us are more wealthy, less wealthy. When I think of the stories of my grandfather who literally didn't have a piece of bread, Baruch Hashem, I don't think any of us don't have a piece of bread today. They saw COVID. They saw the incredible nisyonos, the tests that we all have in Yiras Shamayim and fearing heaven. Without going into too much detail, each and every one of us knows it. They saw the complexity in marriages. The marriages that work, the marriages that don't work, the marriages that work barely. They saw the chinuch of our kids. Off the derech, on the derech, this thing, that thing. Challenges, fitting in the system, not fitting in the system. Is there a system? Is there not a system? All the ganze Megillah. They saw divorce. They saw the kinderlach with special needs. They saw the news cycle and how, despite the fact that I imagine none of us have TV, but Baruch Hashem, thanks to internet, we all know the news more than any of our grandparents ever knew the news. They saw the depression. They saw the suicide. They saw the time that we live in, that more people die from overeating than undereating, which is, by the way, a fact. And they saw this, and they all said, Meichel Tavis. No, thank you. I don't want this. Rabbi, Ula, they look at this generation, they say, no, thank you. The nisyonos are unbelievable. So again, before we sit there saying how we could bring Moshiach, let's remember what the task is. It's huge. And that the nisyonos that we struggle with are huge. I remember hearing, I don't know if it was the Satmar Rebbe, the Satmar Luv, who said that when my Hasidim see in one train ride from Williamsburg to Manhattan, my Hasidim in the shtetl didn't see their entire lifetime. We're living we are. Unless you're one of those that Baruch Hashem literally doesn't have a smartphone, doesn't know what WhatsApp is. You're watching this on some, I'm not sure how you're watching this if you don't know what the internet is, but maybe you're watching a recording, someone sent you a VHS later, I don't know. We're living in a different world, Heather. We're living in an intense world. When the Rebbe said the Sikha, internet didn't exist for most of us. There was maybe a few little places in the American government. Not one person over here in 1991, no matter what your age, had an email address, knew what a smartphone, even didn't dream about it, didn't know what the internet is, Khan. The Rebbe, I remember in those years, the Rebbe was talking about and broadcasts, and if you remember the big truck outside 770 to broadcast the Rebbe's Hanukkah Live. What big truck today? Today's Zoom. I'm literally sitting in front of my computer with a tiny camera. Das ist es, with an internet. So let's remember the world 30 years later. So is this a guilt-inducing day? Come on, really, So first of all, maybe it is, but it's not any of our right to sit there inducing the other with guilt, because if I brought Moshiach, then I could sit there coming and telling you knew what's with you, but maybe it's my problem more than it's your problem. And Bechlal, this whole idea of one of us talking down to the other as if one of us has the answers, none of us have the answers. The Rebbe says he doesn't have the answer. So what we're doing is we're just verbringing with each other, talking to ourselves out loud. And the Rebbe, so where am I leading to? The Rebbe is telling a bunch of people, again, forgive me if I'm assuming, full of self-doubt, who spend too much time on their phones, who care a bit too much about American politics, in my humble opinion, who have moved on from instant coffee so long ago that anything less than a $4 freshly brewed coffee is mamish, nishbakavidik, and who spend a bit too much time signing up for getting points on credit cards. That is turning to us. I'm talking to regular people, not only to mashpiyim in yeshiva who are mufshit, Cheder who talk Yiddish, who know exactly what happened every single year. You say, what happened to them? What happened in Tafshin Chof Ches? And they say, Chof Ches was that. And that Fabrengen. Obviously, that was talking to them as well. But he's also talking to the people who are like, what are you talking about? He's talking to all of us. Now, I'm going to go on a limb and say this. When Moshiach comes, Mirz Hashem, take it from me, Yad Mamash. We're going to always, our kids and grandchildren are going to learn Chumash. But I believe that there's going to be another book they're going to read. I don't know what the book is called, Chumash 2.0, I don't know what it's called. And it's going to be the story of us. I think just like we are spending the last 3,000 years analyzing Deir HaMidbar, for all eternity, they're going to be analyzing us. And poor Kairach, who thought he's just causing a little faribul, a little issue, as they say in South Africa, with Moshe Rabbeinu, for the next 3,000 years, he's being analyzed and dissected. You and I are going to be dissected. And I just hope that I'm not dasan v'aviram, that, that we don't enter that category. Why are they going to dissect us? Because we're the ones that brought Moshiach. Now, Arizal says, and the Rebbe quoted it many times, that the Dor of Geula is the Dor HaMidbar. It's a Gilgul of the Dor HaMidbar. We are literally the reincarnation. In other words, we're part 2.0. And our children and grandchildren will be discussing this, and they'll be sitting with us and asking a simple question. Zogmir, the Moshe Rabbeinu told you that Moshiach is coming. Yeah, I know. He did. But the way he made it sound was it was coming today. And 30 years later, nobody didn't come in. So, be honest, we lost our mojo. We lost our excitement. It's not there. Okay. Then your great-grandkid comes and says, I really don't get it. You got 40 years of Sichos. You got 700 Sfarim of Chabad Chasidus. I don't know how many Sfarim there are, there are tons. You got everything poured on you. You got the Rebbe who's documented talking the truth. Chaim Fogelman's great song. He would not tell us lies. And he's coming and telling each and every one of us, Mashiach's coming, Mashiach's here, Mashiach's real. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu tells the Yidden, Hisyatzvu the Ulas Yeshuas Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu tells the Yidden, stand back. Atem Tacharishim. Stay quiet. The Rebbe didn't tell us that. The Rebbe didn't say Atem Tacharishim. The Rebbe says, you all be the Nachshons. In that generation, you guys all shvag. As Rabbi Shach was talking about the 4 groups. You stay quiet. This time the Rebbe doesn't say Hisyatzvu the Ulas Yeshuas Hashem. He says, go do it. Go be the Nachshon. I'm only average. Not only am I average compared to Kusha Lepler, the Chassidim from the Dor Rishon, I am average to every person I know. I'm average to the people in my grade. I'm average to the people who have it easy in Shidduchim. I'm average to those who come from healthy families. I'm average to those who don't suffer from mental illness. I'm average to those who saw the Rebbe. I'm average to those who can write a pilpul every single week, etc. All the complexities, the Geshe complexity and the Shlichus complexity and the narratives that we all, that some of us tell ourselves aside, yeah, this is the person. The Rebbe calls us, you and I, and he says you, the person who thinks they're extremely average. The person who thinks that there's nothing going for them, they don't tick any boxes, they don't make it onto the websites every day as a high-profile macher. You're the one that's going to make the biggest difference in all of history. You're going to bring Moshiach. So let me finish with this thought. The Rebbe loves each and every one of us, unconditionally. And yet there's certain people that the Rebbe empowered. And who were they? So I want to tell you the story of my father. My father was Rabbi Avtzon. I'm his oldest son, who passed away 2 years ago at the young age 61. Now, just to give you some context, my father was a 19-year-old bacher when he arrived in 770. Although he came from a Lubavitcher mishpacha in Detroit, for whatever reason, he didn't learn in a Chabad yeshiva. Whatever reason. He ended up learning in Telz, actually. So he arrived into 770, never learning in a Chabad yeshiva Ktana or a Chabad yeshiva Gdola, maybe for a few months. Shows up, and there's a Yid, Rabbi Zalman goes, who just opened Sichos in English. Also a young whippersnapper, young guy. Anyway, why did nobody think of translating the Rebbe Sichos to English till then? I don't know. But Isaiah was. And Rabbi Zalman eventually moved to Australia. So I'm going to quote Rabbi Eli Tauger, Zol Sein Gesund, who worked with my father for many years and continues to work in the Mossad that my brother Shmuel is running. It says it was 1979, just to give you context, 1979, Tafshin Hanukkah time, so Tafshin Mem. My father is 22. So the average age that the guy's in a smicha pogrom or trying to figure out what they want to do, etc. Most guys don't see themselves as major revolutionaries. It's Hanukkah time, and the Rebbe says all Rashi HaMoistis should show up. Come up. So Eli Tauger says, Yena turns to me and says, let's go up. I said, no, you go alone. You carry the financial burden, so that makes you the Reish HaMoised. He says, I still remember that moment. Yena paused, thought about what it meant to truly take on the Chrayas for Sichos in English, straightened his shoulders, and went up to the Rebbe. How old was this boy? 22. The Rebbe wanted doers. Whether you learned in Telz, whether you come from a Chashav Mishpacha, where you don't come from Chashav Mishpacha, you're coming and you're showing up and you're saying, I'm ready to translate the Rebbe's Torah and make sure it goes out. Fine, so much so that a year later there was a certain organization that wanted to translate something of the Rebbe in English, and the Rebbe says, how he's a shaykh l'Sichos in English. It's shaykh to Batzilus. Who's Sichos in English? A few bachtim. None of them were married. And the Rebbe is saying, my Torah in English, shaykh to those chevra. So in case any of, and by the way, this is one of my complexes when older chevra will come and tell us, the younger people, and now I'm starting to look old, so I could be equally blamed. They come and tell us, you need a lot more training before you could do something, etc. Yes, we all need the wisdom of our elders, but the Rebbe empowered youngsters, the guys that were taking on shlichus, the guys that took over moistus, young people. So what does it mean, tut atzvasser kent? I don't know any Titus. It means literal. Do. And here's an idea that I started this year for myself that, Baruch Hashem, I never thought would have atzlacha. I'm a rabbi in a community, 90% not Shem Shabbos, etc. And I thought of the idea by the beginning of the new Rambam cycle to start teaching a daily mitzvah. We thought how many guys would sign up. I know it's been done around the world. Baruch Hashem, 250 people signed up. So then I thought to myself, how about daily chumash? 150 people signed up. Then I thought to myself, how about daily Tanya? Another 150 people signed up, and not all the same cheder. And a lot of them Pashut cheder, not Shem Shabbos, Kashrus Leisata. So my advice is, let's go back to basics. Obviously, in Vaisapa to Inyani Gul Moshiach that is being punted today to our Malchus, let's do what the Rebbe told us to do. Learn the Rambam. I could say for the first time in my life I'm learning Tanya because I have to teach it. Perek Mem, Perek, like some of the talking you never learned in yeshivas. I push it like, oh wow, nice to meet you. So whatever it takes, Chevra, let's move on, let's shake it up, and let's bring the Galus of Melech HaMashiach, and may we not have to sit there analyzing what, if, how, but let's see it be'inayim gashmias. Amen. Thank you so much. Sei gesund.